Alright, how's everybody doing? I'm here recording my review for Daredevil Born Again Season 1, Episode 2, which is titled Optics. And we start the episode with, of course, a typical Disney Plus, recap of what happened in the dramatic first episode of the show. If you want to see my review for that, it's pretty much posted already. But, yeah, I'm here to talk about Episode 2, which is titled Optics. So our episode starts with Wilson Fisk sitting, at a desk in his new office because he got sworn in as the mayor of New York at the end of the first episode, and he's sitting there and knocking on it, and then he asks his secretary, I'm assuming that's his secretary. He asks her how old the desk is, and if his wife Vanessa was there, she'd be able to tell how old it was immediately. But basically, she says "Oh, it's not that old, sir," and all that stuff. I'm just doing a brief paraphrase again because you should definitely watch the show. But they start talking, and then Fisk goes off track by talking about a story about his father who was not really respectful towards many men, and then he says all this other sophisticated stuff, and then it cuts from that to this dude getting assaulted in the subway by two corrupt cops that have one of them has a Punisher logo on their shoulder, just a cool little Easter egg, and I think it's setting up the Punisher storyline for this season. But they're basically assaulting this poor guy and beating him up, and then Hector Azala, the White Tiger, shows up, and then he beats the crap out of the two corrupt cops, and then one of them trips and falls and gets run over by a train. It's really brutal, and then the moral of the story, don't mess with White Tiger. But yeah, it was pretty brutal even for a Disney Plus show. And then we go right into our intro for the show, which is still a banger, by the way, with all the music and the callback to the first Daredevil series. And then after that, after our intro, we go to Matt, who's at the police station. He's listening, talking to this one lady about one of his cases, and then he says I gotta go, and then he's listening down the hallway, and he hears the two corrupt cops telling the White Tiger that he'll sign this paper to say the truth and get himself thrown into jail. He has no choice. He's gonna get thrown in either way. And then Matt basically goes down the hallway to talk to him, and then they have a conversation about vigilantes in the city and how he's innocent, and Matt can hear his heartbeat like he did back in season 1 of Daredevil with Karen, because he can listen in and hear people's heartbeat and see if they're telling the truth, and he knows that Hector's telling the truth, so he wants to be his lawyer and stand with him and help him through the trials. So we get that scene, and then another scene after that where Matt goes back to the McDuffie building, that's what I'm calling it, where he talks to McDuffie, and then the other guy that works there, I found out his name was Sherry from doing my research. He's the guy who saw Matt without his helmet in the very beginning of the show. And what they're basically doing is talking about what their moves to represent Hector should be, and Matt tells Sherry he wants him to do some digging and on Hector so they can figure out the best way to represent him in court. So it goes from that part back to Fisk, who's in his car, and he's basically trying to get through this highway to get somewhere to meet this police captain who's close to being resigning. That'll come into play later in the episode. But he's basically getting impatient because there's a big hole in the road, and he can't get to his appointment in time, so he gets out and he walks up to the foreman, and he tells him how quick can you get this hole done? I don't know I don't know why he says it like that, but it was pretty funny to me. But he basically asks him how quick can you get this work done, and then he says, but we can't get this done, we don't have the proper funding. So then Fisk says, oh, I can fund you, and get to work, I can cover it. And then everyone's got their phones out because they're recording him because he's the new mayor of the city, and he tells all the people with their phones out that he's gonna get shit done, and that's why they voted for him. And he said it's not rocket science to fill up a hole that big. But yeah, then it goes from that scene back to more Daredevil stuff, because, you know, they're doing like a contrast in this series where for part of the episode we follow Matt, and then for the other parts we follow Fisk. So that's pretty cool how they're doing that. But basically go back to another Matt scene where he's meeting with Dr. Glenn from the first episode, and they're having like another date, and then they're talking about, you know, getting it on later. That's all I'll say, like, to keep, you know, things appropriate, but they're gonna basically be having some fun later on. But then Matt gets a call from Sherry that, like, they're heading to, like, Hector's house to talk to his wife, because Matt told him to go and investigate, basically. So they're going to do that, and then Matt says, well, I'm sorry, but I can't, like, stay for our date, and then they basically set things up for, like, another date later on. That's all I'll say. Like, so, yeah, and then Matt goes, like, back to doing his, like, Daredevil stuff, because he's not Daredevil yet, but he's, you know, gonna eventually become Daredevil. That's why the show's called Daredevil Born Again. So he gets back to his work, and then after that we get another scene with Fisk, who goes to, like, the ex-police captains to one of, like, the other police officers' funerals, and the police captain's there, and then he talks to Fisk and says, like, oh, you're just a spoiled rich kid, and I always knew who you were, and, like, see you around, Kingpin, and all that stuff. Like, you gotta hear the full conversation, because it's crazy. He basically calls Fisk out for how he is, and then Fisk doesn't like that, so then we get another scene with, like, Dr. Glenn, who's signing books, and basically I think this weird kid that's, like, in the audience is one of our villains from the show, Muse, and he basically, like, afterwards, when he goes up to her, says, like, I need help, and then I think that's gonna, like, set up stuff involving the therapist having to help one of the other villains of the show in, like, some twisted way. Like, I don't know what way exactly, but we'll probably find out in the later episodes. But basically Muse wants her to be, like, his therapist to help with whatever messed up stuff he's doing. And then another twist on top of that is we literally find out in one of the next scenes that Matt's new girlfriend, Dr. Glenn, is also going to be the therapist for Mayor Kingpin and also his wife Vanessa, because they're having, like, you know, relationship problems is what I'll call it in this season. So yeah, like I said, the show has a lot of stuff in it, like a lot of action, a lot of intrigue and twists and stuff. So I recommend, if you don't have Disney Plus, definitely subscribe to it to watch this show, because my breakdown of the episodes is kind of like a base, like, breakdown, just my thoughts on it and how hyped I am for it, and you're not going to get the full experience if you don't watch it. So I recommend definitely go and watch this show on Disney Plus. It's been really awesome so far and really intriguing. So yeah, let me get back to my analysis breakdown. So yeah, after that we find out, like, Vanessa doesn't really know how to feel about Fisk being back, and Fisk is, like, I can tell, like, emotionally destroyed by that, because he says, like, tells Dr. Glenn that I want to have my wife back. That's why I'm doing this. So it's pretty, like, dark, deep stuff. And then after that, we go back to Cherry and McDuffie, who are at Hector's house talking to the wife and saying, like, you got to be there to stand with him, because the judges and everybody will like that if you're there, like, representing your husband. And she says, but he's not, like, the man that I once knew. He's not the man that I married. So that, like, you know, sets up drama for that between those two characters. So we won't know now if, like, his wife will appear at his hearing or not. I guess we'll find out in hopefully episode 3 or something, or maybe later on down the line. But yeah, that's pretty much all, like, the White Tiger drama in the show. And then the episode ends basically with one of the coolest scenes on the show so far, in my opinion, with Matt literally following those corrupt cops from the beginning of the episode to, like, following them and listening to their footsteps and go into their apartment. And basically he tells the person that they beat up that Cherry is in a park and he'll pick you up, like, he'll protect you. And then Matt stays behind, and then the two corrupt cops show up, and then they start beating, like, the crap out of Matt, like, pummeling him to the ground, and then Matt bleeds from his nose, and then we get, like, one of the most badass scenes in the entire show, in my opinion, so far, where Matt gets up and he just breaks, like, this cop's arm and breaks all these bones, and it's, like, vicious and brutal for, like, a Disney Plus show. and then he like literally kills them, I'm assuming, and just leaves the bodies there, and then he lets out like a big rageful yell, and then our episode ends. Like, roll the credits. It was just badass and it was awesome, so I recommend you definitely go check out this show, Daredevil Born Again, on Disney Plus. And yeah, that's pretty much my brief, quick 10-minute review on Daredevil Born Again episode 2. It was action-packed. It introduced more information on White Tiger and Muse, and more on Fisk and his new role, and Matt. So just all the characters so far are really intriguing, and I'm looking forward to tonight's episode, because I heard from other YouTubers that Punisher's gonna appear in this week's episode, so I really hope that happens, because any episode with Punisher, it's gonna be a banger. So, yeah, that's my review for Daredevil Born Again episode 2 of season 1, titled Optics. See you guys in the next episode. Peace.